what I see over and over again, and this is not just in Saskatchewan, it's throughout the world, is that governments are able to punt debt down the road. So if you can convince a private partner to do the financing, then it doesn't show up on your books that year. So we don't know how much the private partners are making off the taxpayer, because those are all confidential agreements as well. That's a problem. The governments are happy to say, well, we're risk-free. They assume all the risk. But no company in their right mind would assume all the risk without being adequately compensated for it. And we never know what that risk, transmission of risk, I guess you could call it, costs the taxpayer, because it's all part of this lump sum, teasing out the interest costs, the maintenance costs, the operation costs in committee. I mean, I tried asking questions in highways about the reporting in the public accounts, and they looked at me like they'd never heard of public accounts before. And then I got shut down by the chair, who insisted that I only speak about the budget documents for the forward-looking year. And I wasn't even allowed to ask questions, which was wrong, but the chair is the chair, and so you can't argue with them. SAS Builds is also an interesting body that this government has created, which creates more obfuscation and I think shoving aside examination, because it's a separate crown, which operates very, very separately from what used to be Central Services' role. Back in the day when the Ministry of Highways had their own public servants and their own machinery and their own contracts doing their own work, that was all evident in the public accounts. But now you see a one line item in the public accounts to the Regina Bypass Partners for, $14 million. Boop. So, for example, the bypass, I think, is a 30-year financing arrangement with private financiers. So for a government, I mean, it does show up on the books as part of your long-term debt, but historically, when schools were built, hospitals were built, highways were built, that would be reflected in the fiscal year that they were built. And if you look at public accounts, I got a whole stack of them right there. You can see that is a lovely way for a government to just not talk about that debt. And it shows up, as I say, in the public accounting, but it's actually got its own category now in the public accounts, which never existed before. And it's a convenient way for governments not to talk about how much they're spending. Value for money audits are this sort of golden handshake for governments if they get a value for money audit that says we're going to save $30 million by punting the risk and using the P3 model. You can't challenge those numbers because I think if a person was to truly look at the scope of the value for money audit that was given to the company that prepares it, I think there's a skew there that's going to affect the results of the audit. And then the government can waive it and say, look, we're saving millions and millions of dollars, and there's no way to test that. It's a dangerous model, but it's attractive to governments for a number of reasons. I don't even think it's an ideological attraction. I mean, other governments do it all over the world, and it's mainly a way of handling your debt load by passing it off, and the taxpayer ends up paying it in the long run.